First email says, my fiance, Mark, participates with me when it comes to healthy foods and exercise. And I'm grateful that we share these two things. When Mark chooses not to eat healthy or not exercise, I'm trying not to care. I can hear what's coming next. I'm trying not to care, but, let's see what the next word is, but I do care. I don't want to be one of those nagging wives. Now it's my turn, but couldn't resist, sorry. I don't want to be one of those nagging wives who measures his food choices or how active he is or whether he does his physical therapy or not. What is loving in this situation? You're going to find this a really novel and crazy idea. You could talk about it. We have seen so many models of people being passive-aggressive, sulking, nagging, ignoring, controlling, manipulating, that many of us, it's never occurred to us to just, talk, not belittle, berate, criticize, not all that stuff. So you ask him how involved he wants you to be, For example, a long time ago, I recognized that there was no way in the world I was going to regularly take the medication I'm supposed to take. And I knew I needed help. So I talked to Donna about it. She said, sure, I'd be glad to be happy to give you the medication. So I'm on Skype calls in the morning routinely or just writing, and this little medicine cup just appears in front of my mouth, and I just swallow it up and drink whatever she gives me. She tells me when to do stretching exercises for my knees and hips because we agreed that I needed to do that, and I agreed that I would never do them on my own. So I asked her to help me with those things, but I have not asked her to tell me what would be healthier for me to eat. So she doesn't tell me. Either you can be involved in the choices made by the other person, either of you can be, but it has to be a mutual agreement, which requires conversation. You say, I believe that it's loving and accepting him no matter what choice he makes. Not quite. You get to voice your concerns and offer help at whatever level you think is appropriate, but then he gets to decide whether he wants that help. You indicate that it's not completely loving and accepting him because you don't want to be nagging, but you are. You want to not care about what he eats and whether he exercises, but you do. So you get to say, this is what I think would be best for you. But then he gets to say yes or no. And the rule is, you get to say what you think you should do once. That's information. I believe you'd be healthier if you did blank. If you repeat yourself, that's not information, that's nagging. Just twice is nagging. Or you assume that he's mentally retarded and actually needs your help, in which case you probably he shouldn't be your fiance, he should be in an extended care, facilitated care facility. But it's not an all or nothing thing either. You can describe how much you think he should do, and then you can talk about it. You agree on how your partnership will look. You agree on, for example, he may say, well, I really like half of these ideas, but not the other half. What matters is that you agree. And the agreement may change with time. You may say, for example, we've been doing X for a while, and it doesn't seem to be having the effect that we had anticipated. Would you be willing to renegotiate that? If he says, nah, then you drop it. Bring it up again in 6 months. Don't nag him. You say, I care about his health and happiness, however, and I want the best for him. Beware of these words. I care about his health and happiness, and I want the best for him. That usually precedes some form of controlling, just telling you. You say, I'm aware that some of his food choices irritate existing health conditions, for example, acid reflux. So Do I remind him? Back to the rule. You tell him once that what he does aggravates his reflux. For example, he eats late at night. He eats the wrong foods whatever. You've heard all the spiel from his doctor, I'm sure. Then you offer to help him by reminding him, by removing foods after a certain hour, by limiting the availability of certain foods, whatever, but you both have to agree to it. And like it. If you browbeat him into agreeing with you, see, that's not agreeing. That's just him being a hostage, and you're going to really end up paying for that. And so is he, because it will divide you. So no compromising, no win-lose, agreement. You conclude saying, do I say anything? If he's compromising his new hip, his ACL repair, etc., do I just stay within the his choice reminder to myself? Yeah. It's really easy to say, I'm doing this for your good. How much control has been done in the name of doing good? Hitler went to war against the world because he was doing good, doing the best thing for the master race. That sounds exaggerated, not a lot. He just had greater opportunity to do it. So far more effective to discuss and agree than to either nag or just let him do whatever, both of which would tend to be harmful. That's it. This is from a young man in his 20s who is looking for a partner and was recently dating a girl, Sherry. He said, Sherry just finished up Real Love and Dating, and while that's been good, over the last week, I've been sick and unhappy, so much so that I started using porn again. I finally figured out that I'd been trading with Sherry, trading imitation love, a lot. We weren't having sex, but she's been occupying all of my free time on the weekends, including waking me up on the only days that I have to sleep in, just to have more time with me. She's been staying late also, to the point that she's been calling me from home late at night just so she has somebody to talk to in order so that she can stay awake. That's a lot of time consumption, a lot of neediness, a lot of clinging. And you're wise to recognize the trading and the clinging. That kind of stuff is almost unavoidable in the beginning of a relationship, wanting to be with your partner all the time, talking late at night on the phone. It's all very romantic. Because in the beginning, you won't find somebody who's already unconditionally loving. You'll have to help them learn and grow. But you have to be seeing a profound willingness on her part to learn how to love, or a true partnership's just not going to happen. You say, I decided to stop trading with her, and she wasn't happy about it, to say the least. I told her the truth, that we had been trading and that I wasn't willing to keep trading, and that our relationship was going to change. While she was insisting, I had to tell her exactly what she was doing wrong and demanding that I call her and accusing me of running and pleading that she missed me. I responded by getting her the list of coaches and wise people and said, they're gonna have to help you because I can't. That's pretty smart, kid. Very few people in their 20s, actually, of any age, figure that out. When you've got somebody who's clinging to you when you're already in a trading relationship, you're not going to be the right guy to teach her how to be unconditionally loving. It's impossible, because she takes every word that you say as either manipulating or as a response to her manipulation. So good for you. She's a victim, she's a controller, she's manipulating, she's an attacker. You're not going to be able to handle that. You say, and I trusted that she would figure this out. I've been having my regular call with a wise man, and I've been taking care of myself while sick and recovering. I'm back to not using porn and I'm telling the truth and feeling loved. And Sherry's been making real love calls and participating in conference calls, talking and telling the truth about herself and being wrong. Way to go, kid. You made a good move. I'm very proud of her, though I haven't told her that yet. I had a great call with a wise man today and realized that I've been thinking about this too hard. So far, I've been texting Sherry some each day, right up until she gets empty, and then I empty out and I can't love her, so I end the conversation for my part. Good. I wish more people would stop talking when they get afraid or angry. Even better if you stop talking before you completely empty out, because then usually some damage is done and then there has to be healing, and it's way better to prevent damage than to heal it. You say, but I realize I'm still trying to control her. I want to avoid trading with her, avoid making mistakes, and that just isn't possible. This is a pretty smart thing you just said, and that everybody needs to hear. Pretty much every day somebody says to me, I don't want to make these mistakes. I don't want to hurt my partner. Well, there's not another way to learn. So if you're avoiding mistakes, then you're not being yourself. If you're avoiding mistakes, you're not learning. So if you're avoiding mistakes instead of learning from them, you're going to live in fear and you're not going to like the result. You say, I'm going to continue learning, so making mistakes and trading is inevitable. Yeah, like I pretty much just said. I just need to be honest and recognize when I am and make a different choice. So I'm going to tell her the truth. I'm proud of her and that I'm imperfect too, and I'm not going to get anywhere by trying to avoid failure. I should have read further because you've got this exactly right. Because avoiding failure is unrelated to knowing a successful way. How many of us have promised we wouldn't make the same mistakes as our parents, for example? Well, we didn't. We just made new stupid mistakes. We need help. We need to be taught. So avoiding failure isn't the key. Learning is. You conclude, I've been grateful this whole way through, even if I forget that sometimes that I'm fortunate to have learned how to have people in my life who care about me. It's been very illuminating to see where she is and recognize how far I have come. I have no idea what the future will bring, and I'm okay with that. I'm happy. Way to go. I'm looking forward to hearing how it turns out. I know a woman who did real love for a couple of years. She was happier. Actually be almost more accurate to say she was less miserable. But she wasn't a lot happier. She came here for an intervention some time ago. I thought of her because I talked to her recently. And she came so that she could feel loved instead of just talking about it. When I saw her, she was pretty close to emotionally dead. She could feel almost nothing, like she was robotic. But she did begin to trust. Slowly. We talked every day after her intervention. Bit by bit, she trusted more. It was like watching a flower slowly open, like in slow motion instead of time-lapse photography. Her confidence increased. Her smile became more genuine. She finally said the other day, I'm having a better time now than I ever have in my life. When I simply drive to work, she said, I enjoy it. And that's never happened before. She sent a text a couple of days ago and said, life is amazing. I'm having a delicious time. That's a pretty great word to use to describe your life. I'm driving to places I've driven before, but suddenly the scenery and the weather are more amazing. I'm singing to the radio. Down to my bones, I'm moved by everything. And now she tells me that she's starting her own business, one that she has planned for years, but just didn't have what she called energy to do. How do you have energy when you're miserable and despondent? Love is power. And that's what we're seeing in her. She visited a friend just the other day, and her friend, and she talked about her friend and said, I can't believe how open she was with her life, with things that she was having a hard time with. She has never been that open with me before. And I asked her, do you know why she was that open with you compared to all the other times? No, because you invited it, because you're open, because you're vulnerable, because you've changed, because you're happier. And that made your friend feel safe and cared for. So she, poof, opened her heart. In addition, she then thanked her friend for staying with her all the years that she was miserable. That's an extraordinarily sensitive thing to do. She's really waking up. In fact, she said yesterday that she went to a shop to have her car worked on, a mechanic shop, and there was a stranger there sitting in the waiting room, and she just started up a conversation with this guy. And they had the most delightful conversation. She said, when he left, he turned to her and he said, thank you. I've really enjoyed this conversation and I've enjoyed meeting you. She's laughing at how much fun it was. This is what it's like to trust. This is what it's like to lose your fears. This is what it's like to really be alive and know who you are. It's just fun to share stories like that. I know a woman in real love who writes, I have a friend, Lily, who's very draining. She complains a lot. She's very demanding of time. She empties me out right now. But she often texts asking for a call. What should I do? You remember that loving is given freely. You give it when you have it and if you have it. So, first, you love when you can. Your answer is either no or yes. You don't explain yourself, and you decide exactly how long you're going to talk to her. Or, if you're not capable, you set the time to talk to her further and further out. So if she demands to be talked to today, you tell her that you have time 2 or 3 days from then. The more loving you become, you'll find the more challenging, actually, you'll see that she is. But you'll also be better equipped to handle somebody who's more challenging. But right now, it doesn't sound like you're ready for somebody that's this draining. Second, if she keeps it up, even on the occasions you do decide to talk to her, you can eventually point out that she complains. You can say, what, Lily, I'm sure you don't realize this. I've had this conversation many times with people. I'm sure you don't realize it. I'm sure you don't mean to, but you complain a lot and it doesn't make you happy. And it's kind of a downer. She'll either then learn something from that and ask you what you've learned about complaining or how not to, or she'll quit wanting to talk to you, and you win either way. Here's a lady who writes, I'm not sure if you ever get bored of these real love has changed my life emails, but here's another one. Nah, I'm never bored. It's still a miracle to me after all these years of doing it. In the beginning, she says, I had no idea what was about to happen in my life. In my first seminar, you said most of us have a distorted view of how our parents loved us. We believe it just because it was all we knew. I was skeptical of that, but now I routinely see things like my sister screaming in the face of her 4-year-old. One day when my sister was screaming at her 4-year-old, I asked my mother, when you see that screaming, how do you feel about it? And my mother defended my sister. And then I remembered how often my mother did that to both of us. I had forgotten. My eyes are finally open to how I was really raised. The more you see, kid, the more you're capable of seeing. It's amazing what we learn to live with and completely accept. We just didn't know any better, and neither did our parents. You say, I've not been in touch with my feelings at all. I was raised by a complete rescuer who was, doing her best, who had no idea of her own feelings, still doesn't. She blames in almost every conversation we have, never takes responsibility. I have, over the years, taken responsibility, in fact, for her happiness and been completely oblivious to all of it. Again, it's all you knew. So you didn't know any better. You did it just reflexively, and you did what you were trained to do. This simple conversation with my mother made me realize that I did not have an unconditionally loving family as I would have sworn I did. It would have been a disaster. My childhood would have been a disaster. One of those sneaky ones where everything appears to be perfect. Well, when everybody around you has similar families, and when this is all you've known, it would hardly seem remarkable, would it? You finish saying, I now listen to Real Love and Parenting on Audible daily. I'm determined to raise my children without fear and cannot imagine doing this without real love. I've made so many mistakes because I've continued to be blind to many of my behaviors, but I know that I can make a huge difference every day. By embracing real love, I am completely changing my life. And that's a relatively recent realization on the part of somebody who's actually been around it for a good while. Kind of fun to hear about. I know a man in his 20s, and he's working at bettering himself. He's learning real love. He has a job. And he said to me on a Skype call one day, he said, my sister criticizes me, often in front of the family. She'll tell me things like, I'm lazy. She'll say, you still live at home, so you're taking advantage of our parents. She tells me that I chew too loud. She makes fun of what I wear. This isn't so good. It's eventually going to be time, now, for you to take your sister aside, as in the next time she's over at the house. Don't even wait until you're in a room where it's you and your sister and a bunch of other people. Just take her into a room by yourself and say, there's something you do that you probably don't realize, and it's really hurting our relationship. You criticize me. You criticize how I chew, how our parents treat me, or what you think I should be doing with my life. Listen to me slowly. I really, really don't like it. Now, I can't stop you, but if you keep doing it, I will leave the room. I will not put up with it anymore. So the first thing you do is tell her that. Second, if she does it anyway, you have to do exactly what you said. You have to leave the room. If she does it again, you raise your hand right there while she's there and everybody else is there, and you repeat what you said the first time, that you won't put up with it anymore, and ask her if she wants to leave the room or you do. And then eventually you're going to have a really difficult conversation with her where you say, if you keep it up, I don't really want to have a relationship with you at all. I won't be around when you come around. Because right now you're in a tender, growing place. You're recovering from wounds that have been inflicted over a lifetime. You don't need to be around somebody who inflicts those same wounds in the same household where you were wounded, in the presence of the parents who inflicted the wounds. So you have to actually speak up. But you do this completely calmly. New subject. A woman wrote that her husband required her to listen to him no matter what. Turns out that his idea of listening means agreeing with him no matter what and doing whatever he wants. So in other words, when he says, I want you to listen to me more, what he's saying is, I want you to do a better job of being my slave. Like, for example, wearing unusually revealing clothing, certainly beyond her level of comfort, with him in public and at home with her 3 teenage sons. Completely inappropriate. Participating in sexual acts that she either finds demeaning or painful or both. The list just goes on. And this is what he calls listening to him. he said, well, that's what partners do for each other. And then to be really clever, this guy's a really sneaky little bully. He said, well, I would do anything you wanted. If you asked me to stab myself with a knife, I would. Nut job. To impress upon her that, well, you know, if he would do that, then she should be willing to do anything that he asks of her. This is one of the crazier ones that I've heard. I suggest that he was simply manipulating and intimidating her and completely distorting what a partnership is. She responded to all this and said this: thank you very much. But if I don't listen to what he wants, then I'm not showing him that I love him, right? Because see, this is the lie that's taught all over the place. If you love me, you'll do whatever I want. She continues, at least that's what he says, that if I don't do what he wants, then I'm not caring for him. Listen to me really slowly. This is insanity. It's absurd. It's selfishness. It's taking a hostage. It's owning a slave. Partnership doesn't mean you get whatever you want from your partner. It's really almost the opposite. It means you bring all the love you have to the partnership. That means he brings all the love he has to your partnership. And you think about your partner. Now, you also get to ask for what you want, but not at the expense of hurting your partner physically or emotionally. That's slavery. We talked about this a week or two ago when we talked about a woman who just couldn't see anything wrong with wearing perfume in the house, even though it just irritated the trash out of her husband. And I said, part of a partnership is that you bring all the love you have. You don't get to hurt your partner. And although in this case, wearing perfume didn't equate to hurt on her part, or at least in her mind, it was hurting him. I called it olfactory assault. She said, well, but am I not being selfish to just give him whatever he wants? No, again, but he is. He married you so that he'd have somebody to do whatever he wants. You continue, what am I supposed to do? I tell him, am I supposed to tell him you're not being loving? He'll have a hard time hearing that. So you explain to him what I've written to you in detail in past emails. In fact, you can give him the past emails and say, I believe that. Then you don't have to come up with the words. I've done this on many occasions where one spouse has been bullied. You may not be able to say these words, but I can. And you can just have him read them. Now, at the end, he may go, well, I don't believe in this foolishness. But see, he will have read the words. They're in his mind. And if he ever brings that up again, you can say, go reread the emails. No kidding. Because you don't seem to have the courage to do it, or you've just simply never been trained in what a partnership is. So to summarize, a genuine partnership is where two people bring all their love to the relationship, as well as everything else, their talents, their abilities, their finances, everything. In this love, you sincerely consider the desires and fears of your partner to be at least as important as your own. Not necessarily more than. That's a wrong definition of love. I love another person more than myself. That's codependency and sick. But they're at least as important. Unconditional love is caring about the happiness of another person without expecting anything in return. Unconditional love is about giving. It's not about taking, which is what he's doing. He sees a partnership as a way to get what he wants, and that's just selfish. He twists the idea of partnership to mean that you have to be a slave. Wrong. A true partner would never, ever make his partner do anything that she didn't want to do. And some of the things he's demanded of you, and you list them to him, are horrifying to you. A real partner would never do that, and you tell him that. I can't tell you how many people have written letters like this to me. then gone and talked to their partner like this, and it kind of shames their partner. Normally, I'm not a big fan of shame, but if it takes shame to get a bully to quit, I'm good with the temporary use of it. You tell him what a partnership is, and that it means you both consider what the other wants. And sure, he can have his desires, but not at the cost of hurting you. You simply do not hurt your partner. And he doesn't get that. So at this point, he's not being a partner. This is from a mother who has embraced real love and transformed her life, her marriage, her child. It's just really a hoot to watch. Her child is loving and kind and responsible at age 3. Not kidding. All loving, kind, and responsible. Amazing. And she's noticed that he's really different from the other preschool kids, because he doesn't do the screaming, hitting, and crying when the parents leave, and the other kids do. They scream and they hit each other and they cry when their parents leave. And her child, this loved child, is puzzled by the behavior of his classmates as he's becoming increasingly different from them, which is unavoidable. Anybody who begins to practice real love in their life notices that they just naturally diverge from the people they've known up to that point, which is kind of obvious, isn't it? You have friends because they're going in the same direction as you. That's kind of how we form them. You have a friendship going along like this, and then you diverge off toward in a direction of unconditional love. Well, if your friends don't follow that direction, you will grow apart. There isn't another way. So the mother writes, I realize now that there's some fear on my part that my son will feel alone as he develops as a loving child, just like I felt alone in school when I was a kid. And I'm worried about that. Reasonable concern. But you see, you felt alone because you arrived at school not feeling loved. And you had nobody to understand you at home or school. That's why you felt alone. You also had no training in how to get along with other kids and teachers. Your son will not feel alone in the same way. He has you to love him, but he will be different. And some people will avoid him because he's different. The kids who are cruel and unkind and gather in little cliques and laugh at other kids, they will tend to avoid him. But you see, again, you'll be there. You'll train him in social skills to minimize his aloneness and maximize the advantages of his being different. What a blessing. You can teach him to become a leader of other kids instead of wanting to be like them. So you can turn his differences into real advantages. It's not the same as it was for you as a kid at all. This is from a woman who says, since my intervention, I've noticed a shift in how I regard people-pleasing, and I'm a little confused. When I came home, I really closed off to everybody, and I wasn't happy or smiley or people-pleasing. Well, actually, that's outstanding. In the beginning, it's quite a change. So you want to go in the direction of not people-pleasing. And if that means that sometimes you don't smile too much, well, great. It's better than the other way, where you smiled all the time and you were miserable. You continue, I was just doing what I had to do to grow. At the time, I hardly smiled to anybody and didn't appear cheery from the outside. I was determined to change my old ways. This is an example of somebody who was paying the price of being different in the beginning because people were wondering what happened to smiley, cheery Susie, but she had the guts to do it anyway because she knew that in the long run it would make her happier. You continue. Before the intervention, I would be cheery and happy all the time because I needed people to like me, to confirm my worth. I'd be happy and cheery whether I was having a good day or a bad day. It was just a constant front I put up. Yeah, I noticed that. In fact, it was painful to watch. You had, in fact, what I call a really painful, cheerful smile. You say, over the last few weeks, I've noticed that I'm smiling more and being more cheery, but it feels different. Ooh, good. It feels like it's coming from my heart now. And I don't feel like I'm trying to get anything from other people, like liking me or praising me. Yes, perfect. You're finally connecting with who you really are. You do want to help people be happy. You want to connect. These are genuine qualities that you have. But if you pollute them with fear, they come out as people-pleasing. And you do it mostly for you. Without fear, who you are now still comes out, as you've been noticing because you're smiling more, just with a different motivation from before. A hugely different motivation. You say, I don't think it's people-pleasing, but I wanted to run it by you and get your thoughts. Nah, it's not people-pleasing, at least predominantly not. It's easy to tell your tone clear from here, just in writing. You say, also the other week I had a flat day, and previously I would have forced being happy and cheery. But the other week I just wasn't feeling happy that day. And I didn't feel like I had to be happy and cheery. I was feeling fine and accepting that that day was just an off day. Perfect. And proof that you're not people-pleasing. If you were, you would have faked it that day. You conclude by saying, so what are your thoughts? Is this people-pleasing again, or am I expressing how I genuinely am feeling on the outside? Finally, genuine. Now, occasionally, because everybody makes mistakes, you will mix in a bit of people-pleasing. Like if you're at a party or you're with especially people you knew in the old days. But so what? Just be aware of it and learn from it. That's all. New story. It's a story about a child, Zoe, 3, who's been raised with unconditional love. And her mother says, I like to tease Zoe by telling her that I love her just a tiny bit, and I pinch my fingers together to show her how little. And then she giggles and she says, no, you love me so much. And she holds her hands up as high as she can to show how much. That's very good. It's very good when a child feels so loved that when you minimize how much you love her, she takes it as a joke because she's so sure of how much you love her. If she wasn't, it would hurt her feelings. And you also succeed in teaching her what a sense of humor is. You continue. Today I thought I'd try something riskier. And I told her I only loved her a little bit, but I loved Eve. Now, Zoe's 3, and Eve is, I think, 2 months now. New baby. And, introducing a new baby is a little risky anyway. So here's mom going, I'm going to take a risk. I only love you a little bit, but I love Eve a little bit more, and I love Daddy a little bit more, and I widen my hands each time. She didn't even pause. She giggled. She said, no, you love everybody so much, and she held up both her hands. There's a kid, says the mother, who understands the nature of love, even though I've had to spend virtually all my time with Eve this week, because Eve's 2 months old. Little babies require a whole lot of care. It's a brilliant risk on your part. She continues, Zoe still hasn't thought or said anything unkind about this new intruder, this little 2-month-old Eve. I'm planning on documenting it when it does happen, because I never dreamed that she could last an entire month. She brings Eve home from preschool. She brings home stickers and paintings from school. Even when I'm explaining to Zoe that I have to spend extra time with Eve, but that I always love Zoe, she makes sure to say, and you love Eve too, right? She walks around and she says, I want Papa Bear to teach me how to love Eve. And that she wants us to have lots of babies, and she's waiting for her baby brother next. I'm pretty sure this is the kid who told her mother that she wanted her to buy her a baby brother. Can't remember that part for sure. Honestly, says the mother, if I weren't living with this kid, I would not believe that it was possible for a 3-year-old to be such a tender sibling. Pretty cool. And this is the kid that in the distant past you were going to sell on Craigslist. Every kid has his bad time, but this kid is really benefiting from feeling unconditionally loved. Here's somebody who says, I teach a class of teenage girls in my church. They are experiencing teasing by bullies at school, and I need to know how to help them with some practical suggestions. The first principle you need to know, and there's no way around this, is that what the girls need more than anything else in their lives is their own sense of self. You can't talk about preventing bullying without talking about a sense of worth or a sense of esteem on the part of the kids who either are being bullied or potentially might be. If they don't have enough of that, they're doomed because they wear a sign on their forehead that says, I don't feel like I'm worth anything, please pick on me. Every bully will then pick on them and hurt them. And they need to know that. In fact, if being teased bothers them, it proves that they do need work on building their sense of self-worth. So this is the critical step. So how do you get it? Every child must find a parent, a youth leader, somebody they can talk to help them see who they are. For one thing, they are valued by you, whoever their mentor is. They're God's daughters, period. If they got that alone, the teasing pretty much loses its power. I mean, picture how this goes. Two kids are competing to be cool. One says, my dad is a doctor. The other says, my dad is president of the United States. And the other one says, well, my dad is God. It's kind of hard to beat. And if a kid really gets that, how do you take that away from them? Illustration. Want to guess how often people tease me? Never. Never. Not of any age for any reason, no matter what their social or economic status is. Why? And haven't for 100 years. Because I know who I am. And if they did tease me, what would my reaction be? That's all you got? That's it? See the point? You can talk about techniques all day, but if kids are not armed with a sense of worth, they're doomed to be teased and they're doomed to be hurt by it. You continue. Someone made fun of one of the girls' shorts for looking like gym shorts. And here I would tend to explain how empty people get a temporary hit of power. Yes, and that's good. And the kids do need to learn to laugh it off. In addition to a sense of self-esteem, when you get picked on, if you take it seriously and you look wounded, you're going to get picked on again. So you teach them some options. In fact, make it a subject of class discussion. They'll come up with some options like, well, yeah, they kind of do look like gym shorts. That was the idea when I got up this morning. That it would inspire me to go to the gym and work out, unless, of course, you would like to borrow them. Kids need to learn to deflect bullying with humor. They take it seriously, they're cooked. You say other people are spreading rumors about them, another form of bullying. Others are gossiping about them behind their back. Boring. And you need to tell them that because they take this very seriously. When they see your attitude toward their being bullied or gossiped about or having rumors spread about them, they're going to listen to you because they respect you. You say, boring that people would be this silly. People who gossip have no lives. There are so many interesting things to do in life. And when we get to the end of our lives, we're going to be a sum of all those choices that we made with all those interesting things to do. There are people to help in the world. And if you have to gossip you reveal to everybody who has any brains or sense of purpose that you got no life. So people who gossip also have no ability to see or love people. So why would you care? This is me imitating you talking to the girls. Why would you care what such a person thought of you? People who gossip are very small in their souls. It would be like caring what a blind person thought of your choice in colors for clothing. You need to teach the girls how ridiculous it is when people bully or mock or tease. When they see it as silly instead of traumatic, it changes the experience. And you're the example. If you get a serious look on your face and go, yeah, it's just really terrible being bullied, well, then it's going to be really terrible for them being bullied. You need to treat it lightly. In addition to, as I said in the beginning, giving them a sense of worth. You continue, teachers can be mean to them. And here I would explain that teachers also feel unloved sometimes and then take it out on their students. And it's important to find a trusted adult, a parent, counselor, or leader to talk this out with. Couldn't agree more. Friends will suddenly ignore them. Yes, they will. And you need to tell them that that's going to happen. You need to go through this entire list that you've been describing to me and tell them these things will happen to you. Not they might. If you say they might, they're going to be afraid of when the day is going to arrive. You tell them it's going to happen. People form relationships on the whole for what they get. That's how they choose their friends. In other words, relationships form for selfish reasons. No kidding. Almost all of them. If a friend suddenly ignores you, they've clearly found a better source of whatever. Praise, power, victimhood, whatever, somewhere else. Well, so what? Would you be offended if a friend suddenly changed their choice of favorite musical group or sports team? It's a similar process. You move on and you find other friends. Now, you also tell the girls that they need to at least examine themselves, because sometimes they lose friends because it turns out they were unkind. So we first eliminate ourselves being a cause of losing friends. And if we can do that, then all the other reasons just don't mean anything. You finally say, I would rather not encourage them at this point to just, as the Bible says, love their enemies. Yeah, when you got teenage girls coming to you and describing to you how they're being treated mean at school, saying love your enemies is less than impressive in middle school. Here's a man's wife who had become increasingly distant, wouldn't talk about problems, wouldn't do things with him. He asked what to do. And I said, I suggest that you tell her the truth. So he did. And he went to her and he said, from the moment we were married, I have been an inconsiderate oaf. I've been more focused on myself and my feelings than on yours. I've been an incredibly selfish husband and human being. I thought that not being unkind was the same thing as being kind. This is pretty brilliant, what he just said. I thought that just by not being abusive, that I was being kind. I thought that the absence of conflict meant that everything was okay. I was wrong. I have been deaf. You've been trying to talk to me and I haven't listened to you. You want a partner, and so do I. But I haven't been the kind of partner that you want or need. My entire life I have learned to depend on myself and myself alone. Bonding on an emotional level with other people scares me because people can hurt you. This is pretty honest for anybody, especially honest for a guy. This challenging time of our relationship may have been the thing I needed to help change myself and become a better partner. I'm not really sure what you want right now, but I would like the chance to begin again with you. Not somebody else, you. I don't want to take any more days with you for granted. I want to begin rebuilding our relationship one day at a time. I can't emphasize enough that I have not been a good listener. I would like to start giving you my undivided attention. I'm interested in what you do, and I'm supportive of your dreams. You are important to me, and so are your aspirations. You matter to me. I love you very much. This is pretty beautiful. If you ever want to write down how to tell the truth to your partner, transcribe this. What happens next is up to her. Don't know the final end of this, but he has at least begun the humbling steps of changing things. It's really beautiful. This man has done what we all have the opportunity to do. He was missing unconditional love in his life. It was really hurting him in his relationship. He went and found a source of unconditional love. I saw him do it. He trusted the love that he was getting. He remembered it, and now here he is already practicing sharing it with his partner, and eventually, I'm sure, with other people. He can't predict how she's going to respond. I can't. But I can predict that if he keeps doing this, he's going to be a happy human being. And I extend the same promise to everybody else, everybody who's listening and more. We'll see you in a week.